It's October 22nd, 2019. This is Andrew in Omaha, Nebraska. And I'm going to be going over some handcuff cases that I've made. This is my first real attempt at molding leather. And I'm using Wickett and Craig vegetable tan English bridle leather. And I've used it to make these handcuff cases. And these go on either, a police officer's belt or a security guard's belt or whatever, and holds their handcuffs. But basically there's this little flap I cut here in the back, and the belt runs through it, and then you open it up, and there's a little cutout right here so somebody can stick their fingers inside here and pull the handcuffs out. And here are these same four cases side by side, so you can kind of see a comparison. This one's made out of English bridle. This one's made out of English bridle. This is the one I just finished. And then these two are made out of natural veg tan leather. Now here are the pieces that I cut out of a poster board. Actually, this is more like a heavy paper. I still need to transfer these over to poster board, but they'll work for now. Anyway, these are the two main pieces. This is the flap that comes over, which would be this piece here. Comes all the way around, has the holes to punch in for the portion that you cut out so the belt can slide through. And then this is the inside liner piece for the inside of the case, which is right here. And then this piece here goes over when I mold the leather to the this mold here. This has a portion cut out for the little slot where you slide your fingers to pull the handcuffs out, as well as a spot for the snap to go. And I just lay that over the top of the leather once it's on top of here, trace it out, and then I can cut off the top of it right there. Now while I'm doing the wet forming here, this is the smallest bag I could find at the local hardware store, and it's anytime if you don't have something underneath this valve here, it just sucks the plastic up into the valve, and then it stops sucking the air out of the bag. So I just stuck an old t-shirt under there. I tried sticking several different objects under there to see if they worked, and so far this t-shirt seems to work the best. But I will just take the bottom portion of the mold, place it in here, and then when I go get the leather, I'll just put it over the top there, seal it up, turn the vacuum on, and the only thing I'm after here is to get a very basic wet form around the entire surface of this mold, because what I found when I try to do it just by hand, I'll always get a pinch point. No matter how hard I try coming around, working the leather down, you'll always end up with a pinch point, especially down here, and it doesn't look good. And I've tried to work the folds out, and it just never looks really good. But I've seen more people on YouTube using these cheap vacuum bags, and I tried it out, and it works pretty good of just getting it a uniform seal all the way around and sucking the leather down. It will not suck the leather down on top of this completely like you would see like a piece of wet plastic in a factory where they're making tons and tons and tons of different items like toys and stuff like that. The only thing I'm after, though, is to just get that initial bend in the leather and get it to slope down a little bit. And once I have that accomplished and I take it out, then I can take the top portion of this and put it over the top there. And then I'll just put a 45-pound kettlebell that I have. I'll just put that on top of that and leave it overnight. Okay, I have this piece of vegetable tan, Wickett and Craig bridle leather, English bridle leather. It's been soaking now for a few minutes in the sink, and it's completely saturated with water. I've wiped the excess off and let it sit here for a little bit. Now I'm going to start trying to wet form it down on top of this mold here. May have cut this piece a little too big, but that's okay. I'm still in the R&D phase of trying to figure out exactly how to do this the most efficient way possible. And I'm still far from that point yet, but get this sealed up. As you can see, I got the initial form around the edges here, especially around this curve, and that's what I'm looking for. You can see me kind of moving the leather just a little bit. It's wet enough inside there that you can slide it just ever so slightly across the mold here. Anyway, it's still out just a little bit around the very edges down here at the bottom, but that's okay because when I put the top of this mold over the top here overnight, that'll get that pressed down. But anyway, this is what I'm looking for. I'm going to leave this sit like this for maybe about an hour or so, and then I'll let the air back in the bag and take it out. Take this out here. Yeah, I definitely cut this piece way too big, so we'll know for next time. But as you can see, the vacuum did a pretty good job of starting the initial form, and this is going to make it much easier when I go and put the top portion of this mold on. All right. We'll see how it looks tomorrow. Get that tail. Get that tail. Get that tail. Now that the mold has sat overnight, I'm going to pull them apart. And it's now dry. As you can see, I used way too much leather for this. I know I've said that before, but I'm going to have to cut all that off. I still keep the scraps for practice runs with my sewing machine. Now this little cover piece here, I put the outline for the way I need the molded piece to be cut. And then since this is the same type of plastic that they use to make cutting boards out of, I can just cut and punch the hole here and run my knife down, and the plastic is strong enough to withhold all that. I know, in case you're wondering here, the mold is made out of a high density polyethylene plastic. I have an uncle here in Omaha who works at one of the plastic companies here in town, and he cut these out for me and then ran them through the mill there at their shop and made the molds that way. So he made me this one, and he also made me one for a magazine pouch for a handgun. And I'm still working on trying to get the handgun mold down a little better. It's got a lot more detailed curves in it and things like that versus this handcuff pouch. This one's pretty simple. So hopefully once I get that down a little bit better, I'll try to make a video about that. But it's really nice because I can just drag the blade right across this plastic. And like I said, this is a type of plastic they make cutting boards out of here in Omaha, we have a lot of meat processors in town. They'll cover the entire workbench with this type of plastic. It can be up to 2 inches thick in some places, and they can hit it with a meat cleaver all day, mallets and things like that when they're processing cattle, and it doesn't dent it at all. So it's pretty strong stuff. Now, there is a certain point in the English bridle leather when you get down to layers where the dye from the tannery stops. So that's where you get these little splotchy parts that look like natural colored veg tan leather. And I just run some dye, black dye, over those portions so they won't be seen. And the dye I'm using today is just Phoebing's Pro dye. It's what I had in my toolbox, and so that's what I'm using. I also have some Phoebing's Resolene and some Phoebing's Edge Coat paint there as well that'll be going. I'm using that on the edges. Now I'm going to put the line 24 snaps on it. I wish I actually waited on the outside flap. I should have waited to the end to put that on because it made it a little harder to edge bevel. And I'm using my Weaver Little Wonder snap setter. It works really well for this. I really like this machine. I'm glad I got it. Um, Also, on the molded portion, I'm going to put the snap on that. It is necessary to do that before you stitch that portion down because otherwise there's no way you'd be able to have access to it later. I changed out the foot on the sewing machine from the double-sided foot that goes on both sides of the needle to this left side only, so the needle can hug up right next to the side of the pouch that's wet formed as I'm going around. I would not be able to get as close if I had the other foot on there. Now it's time to sew the main body of the case together. I have 207 nylon thread loaded up in my Cobra Class 3 industrial sewing machine. I forget what size needle. I think this is a number 23 needle. So, but I think I go forward like 2 or 3 stitches, then I back stitch to lock it in, and then I just take my time. I've got this sped up, but I just take my time going around this, trying to get as close to the molded portion of the case as I can, because underneath there, I'm kind of right on the edge of the all the leather pieces, and I don't want to drop the foot off the edge, off the end there. And I actually will do it right here towards the very end, like the last 2 stitches. You'll see the left side of that sewing machine foot kind of slip off the edge there, and it kind of screws my stitching up just a little bit, but not enough to ruin the project. So I want to figure out a way to see there, it just popped off the edge there. But I'm trying to figure out a better way to do this so I don't have that problem anymore. Now I'm just finishing up. I'm going to hit the edges with the V-Bings edge coat. And then I'm going to go back over the whole thing with acrylic Resin. I just wipe it on with a paper towel. Works just fine. And that'll help keep any type of moisture or water or anything from absorbing into the leather. These cases are definitely a work in progress. I still have a lot of learning to do. So this could be considered one of my first attempts to try and really hone my skills in making these cases. Just the wet forming the leather, getting the stitching to line up, and also I think one thing that I might try and do with some of my future cases is I might try to line the inside with like a piece of suede or something, because I know that sometimes when metal handcuffs are coming in and out of these cases continuously over and over, they will sometimes cause this little snap, the backing on it, to bend. And if it starts to stick out at all, it can snag the handcuffs and make them get stuck in the case and really difficult for the officer to remove. So I think that might be a possible solution to that problem. So if I end up changing up the design or something or improving it, I'll do another video on that. So